So I'm starting this podcast to talk about my journey of self-love, to work through my own understanding and exploration of how to love myself unconditionally, to understand better and to apply my belief that love's inherent quality is unconditional. And it made sense to me to start by talking about um, when I first realized that I didn't love myself. Um, Roughly 20 years ago, um, there were some good things in my life. I had a good job and I was in an amazing relationship. Um, and I guess I was relatively smart, or at least I guess I believed I was relatively smart. I don't know. I knew what I I knew what would be good for me, but I didn't often make healthy choices for myself. And I wanted to illustrate one pattern in particular is that at any time that I went home from work, I and like I remember a lot of things, but I also remember very little. So what I remember is that I would frequently go to McDonald's after work. And I didn't particularly like McDonald's. I just went there because it was convenient and the most direct place to stop in between where I worked and home. And I didn't just get fast food, I got two value meals made of two cheeseburgers and a large fry. So essentially, I ended up with four cheeseburgers and two large fries because I did love the McDonald's fries. And another reason that I chose fast food is because I could go through the delivery, the drive-through. um, I've kind of spontaneously decided to record this because I've been, I don't know, planning on starting this podcast for a while and I don't know, letting needs of perfectionism or whatever like hold me back from taking certain steps. And at the moment, I've been having kind of a difficult night, and I figured, well, one thing is if this is truly going to be a journey of self-love, and it's not necessarily going to mean that I'm always going to be in an upbeat, happy, positive state of mind. Because one theory and idea, and I'll go ahead and say, and maybe you'll laugh at this, I don't know, but I have ADHD. I was diagnosed 5 years ago with that. And about 3 months ago, I was diagnosed with autism, which helped explain a lot about why certain help and strategies weren't maybe working strictly from an ADHD standpoint. Anyway, that little digression was simply to state that a lot of these are going to be fairly raw and candid and uncut. Um, and my thoughts might meander a little bit. So, um, and I don't even remember what I was saying when I went on that minor little tangent. But I know I was talking about this pattern of behavior. Um, all right, I was having kind of a bad night. And another thing that I want to communicate is a thing that's been a big desire of mine recently is to be able to be okay with not being okay, not because I want to remain in a constant state of negative thought and sadness and depression, but because I am trying to embrace the idea of feeling the impermanence of whatever emotional state and mental state I'm in a given moment. So I was having a bad night and I was like, you know what? Maybe it's time for me to just start and record what I planned to make my first episode, which was the moment that I realized that I didn't love myself. And I'm starting with this whole fast food story thing because it's the context set up um for this moment. um because like obviously this is not healthy behavior. And not only is it not healthy behavior, but I was very ashamed of this habit of mine. And um I wanted to mention the drive-through thing because that seemed the most invisible way for me to get away with this. Like, I don't have to like physically step into the store, you know, I can place my order. So at least whoever's taking my order will know what I'm ordering. But at least with the drive-through, it's not like I'm gonna um, be seen taking all of that food with me or eating all that food because I was going to eat all of that food myself, pretty much. And I was really ashamed of it. And so I would rationalize to myself, oh, they're not going to know. Um, they're not going to know if I'm ordering this for myself or if I'm making an order for me and someone. And because I'm using the drive-through, that must mean that I'm going somewhere. So I'm probably picking something up for me and someone else. Anyway, I don't really remember why this was like, what I mean is like, on one hand, I kind of remember why, but I can't be sure. And I know this seems weird, but I don't remember if I ate at work. Like, I must have, you know, brought lunches with me or had lunches in the cafeteria where I worked, you know. Um, something along those lines. But but for some reason this was my common pattern. And maybe this was how I had dinner. I don't know. The other thing is like I ate pretty much all of it in the car on my way home and usually would leave all the trash in the car. So like even though on one hand I thought maybe I was stealthy enough or like incognito enough, if I did this on a fairly daily basis, yeah, the trash is going to accumulate. And so then I would have to get to points where I'd have to like bring a big trash bag into the car and like dump all the trash into. And I actually think maybe I even had this paranoia like, what to do with that trash bag. Um, I don't know. I digress. The point in me sharing this fast food story is, this was a pattern that I had that I knew was not healthy. And one day I had a conversation with my best friend, and I was too ashamed to like admit the extent of what I was doing. So I kind of basically posed my problem to her in the sense that like it's like I'm not taking care of myself. Like I know what to do to like take care of myself, but I seem to not be choosing the healthy choices for myself. And she is my best friend. She is also a colleague that I worked with. And while this wasn't the job we were in, she did study theology when she was in school. And so, and she was very religious. Um, and she said one of her mentors had once posed a question to her or her class or something about imagining how to love yourself as God loves you, except, from a Christian standpoint, that seems almost incomprehensible. So the mentor sort of had her bring it down a level to imagining loving yourself as your mother loves you. And when she said that to me in that moment, I knew in my heart that I didn't love myself. That was the moment that I realized this. And it hit me really hard. And it's kind of like, how did I even come to believe this? How did I even come to not love myself? I had a loving family. Um, I had a good upbringing. I had friends. I was in a relationship with a wonderful man. Where did this come from? I couldn't understand. I didn't know. And I think I also was really struggling with the idea that I needed to, I mean, I wasn't struggling with the idea of needing to do something about this. Like, once I had this realization, I mean, it was like, I need to figure this out. I need to get to the bottom of this. Um, But the thing that I was struggling with was how do I go about um, addressing this? And, when I first came up with the idea for this podcast, I was outlining this idea and was sort of sketching out what I might talk about in the episodes. And when I was then sort of sketching out my idea for my first episode, I was thinking like, I need to figure this out and I can't let my parents know, especially my mom. Um, I need to figure this out without letting her know. And that was like 3 years ago when I was sketching all of that out. So this is what I mean by my memory. I don't know. But like, I can't be sure that that's where my head was back then. But what I do know is that the moment that I realized this, that I didn't love myself, the next step solution that I chose was to seek therapy. And that felt right because I figured that would be the best option to help me start to get to the root of how I came to have this belief of myself. Where did this come from? So that's sort of what I had to start with, what I have to start with. Um, I don't know if I'll split this up or edit this out, but I'm going to go ahead and say what happened next, which is I'm pretty sure I got some names from my general physician, my primary care doctor of therapists, and made an appointment with one of them. And I I'm trying to think. I don't know if I saw this person more than once, but obviously I went to this therapist and I came out and said the reason I'm seeking therapy is because I've realized that I don't love myself. And I probably did talk about, the food eating habits, patterns, and probably other things that I was feeling I was struggling with where I wasn't doing things to care for myself. Um, because really that like I mean that actually is part of why this was so important. It's like if I am choosing things that are not good for me and not healthy for me, then I need to learn to love myself before I can start actually making the choices that are healthy for me. So that's where my mindset was. Like, I won't be able to take the steps to care for myself and love myself as my mother would love me if I didn't understand why I didn't love myself and find a way to turn that around. So when I sat down with this first therapist, I probably shared, like I said, some you know, information similar to what I've said here. And I only saw this therapist one time. And the reason I knew they weren't right for me is because their suggestion was to try some kind of, I don't know, strategy, um, self-help thing. I don't know. What I remember is that it was called Fly Lady. And I'm sorry if anybody's watching knows about this method and like did it and it worked for them. But what I remember it's like, it was like laying out sort of like a daily routine kind of a thing that was supposed to like accumulate tasks. The first one I remember for sure was clean your sink or make your sink shine or something like that. And I think each, I don't know, subsequent day or subsequent week, it's like you do, you know, one week and you do that, and that would be the only thing you did. And the next week you'd add another thing to it. And the premise essentially that this therapist was taking was if I start doing little steps to clean up my home, tidy up and clean up my environment, that would start to shift the inside. So basically, it was kind of this perspective from the outside in. And I left her because I'm like, this isn't going to work for me because I'm not going to do those things. I already know that this is not like I already knew this is the problem. The reason I don't do these things for myself is because I have this core deep-seated belief that I don't love myself. So I'm not going to just spontaneously start doing things to care for myself. And obviously, I wasn't like doing all kinds of destructive things. Like it was mostly, you know, eating unhealthy foods and like having trouble keeping a clean and neat and tidy home. Um, there's probably other stuff, but those are really the big things that I've struggled with for my entire adult life, really. Probably not just my adult life, but for sure my adult life. But anyway, the point is for me, it was very clearly an inside out kind of a problem. I wouldn't be able to change my behavior until I somehow got to the root of understanding why I didn't love myself and how to reframe that belief for me. And that's why I discontinued seeing that therapist. And it took some time. Um, I found a therapist that helped for a while, um, but I can't actually speak too much to that person because I don't remember much about my time with her. Um, that's nothing against them. It's just not a period of my life that I really remember all that much. Um, there are other things that stand out during that time that I'll get into later. Um, but yeah, and this seems like so rambly. Okay, so maybe I'll leave with this is because also I kind of as I was developing this podcast idea in the last few weeks or months, I realized I'm gonna kind of be having a dialogue like myself now and insights and things that I've learned and beliefs that I've developed, you know, in recent weeks and years. And that my present self is sort of dialoguing with my past self. So I'm kind of maybe going to be jumping back and forth. So, like I said, I was diagnosed with autism 3 months ago. So it's not been that long. And it's such a misunderstood um, form of neurodivergence already. And I've only just barely started to sort of see and understand how it is, how in particular in my case it presents. But the reason I felt the need to like mention this now in the context of what I'm sharing on the start of this journey is uh, I resonate with this idea that I guess I won't say all, but many with autism have sort of a bottom up processing need. And that feels, I think, very much in line with what I was just saying about why I couldn't apply the suggestion this therapist had of like, start working little by little on my environment and slowly that would somehow like make a difference um, on the inside. And I was like, no, I have to work from the inside out. The root of the problem is self-love. And that just seems very much in alignment with the bottom-up processing thing. And I think right now I'm also kind of compelled to say, even though I started with talking a lot about my eating habits, um, I also mentioned like the cleanliness and tidiness of my home, which, like I said, I was diagnosed with ADHD 5 years ago. So like, you know, and I'm a creative type too. So like having a perfectly organized, neat and tidy home really is not such a requirement, but there needs to be a functionality to it. And managing that aspect of my life has also been one of the hardest things for me throughout my adult life. And I've gone through waves back and forth of keeping up with that. But this past year has been very difficult for me for a number of reasons that I'll get into at another time. But right around the time that I was able to actually get the testing, the assessment, and then receive my autism diagnosis, it had been about a year since I'd really done anything to clean or organize my home. And I'd been using a meal delivery service, um, which was really helpful in a lot of ways. But but it also created a problem in that I didn't have a good system for getting rid of all the boxes. And so like the probably 90% of the chaos in my home was just accumulated trash that I hadn't removed. And I can talk about this more in another time, but like I'm bringing this up because I did get some help from a good friend um, to at least take a step to like clear the trash out of my home. And the moment that I took the first couple bags to the dumpster, I immediately started bawling. And I realized that as much as I've also been incredibly critical of my lack of discipline and motivation to take care of that kind of stuff for myself, in that moment, and there was a lot of other factors that contributed to this, I realized the trash was a physical manifestation of a lot of pent up and suppressed emotions. And it's odd because for a few years now, I've really tried to lean into the idea of how beneficial it is to let out the negative feelings when they come up rather than to hold back or to tamp them down or whatever. Um, I don't know. This is, again, me maybe getting a little too drifty with the point that I'm mainly trying to make, which is just giving you an intro into the start of my journey of self-love. But I don't know, for some reason it feels connected in my head that earlier I did say something about wanting to be okay with not being okay. And I think the amount of trash that I let accumulate in my home um, was sort of another kind of representation of that, except because of how my home looked. Like I've had very few people actually come into my home since I've lived here or any place that I've lived, especially if it looks like it had with all this trash, which that was the worst, pretty much the worst it's ever really been. But anyway, oh boy, it's gonna be my first episode, and all this rambly stuff is part of why I've been hesitant to like get into it. But either you're gonna listen and come along on the journey with me or not. So I'll leave it to you to decide. But I just want to leave it by saying that if I'm also trying to learn and understand unconditional love, that the inherent quality of love is that it is unconditional, this would be one of those things that I should be able to express whatever I'm feeling without fear of not being loved and not loving myself. So rather than looking outside of myself, trying to learn to accept these things about myself. And I think because I would hide a lot of these things because they have been some of the things that I have been most ashamed of, I would be letting others in. And by bringing some, like this friend into my home and like letting her help me with this, that was also kind of a step of like, this is a way of me loving myself by asking for and receiving and accepting help to see this, supposedly like shameful, negative characteristic of myself. Um, yeah. So obviously, I didn't have a formal structure for this, um, but I do feel better that I've started this recording, and I do feel like kind of my main point came through, I hope. Um, Thanks for listening. Um, there's definitely going to be more. And I guess also I want to say, like, if you're in a similar state and trying to seek therapy, obviously, not all therapists are the same. And, that first one that I sat down and worked with was probably a wonderful therapist. She just wasn't right for me. So don't get discouraged if you try therapy and it doesn't work out right off the bat. Like, I found a really amazing therapist a few years after all of that happened and had a really great relationship with that therapist. Then I moved to where I currently live. And it took me about 3 years after I moved here to find a good therapist. But the one that I've been with for like 5 or 6 years now. So she's pretty awesome. And I'm really grateful for that. Um, so yeah, um, it's a journey, it's a process. Um, but I do really think, and this is why I'm starting this journey of self-love as a message of the importance of self-love. It's because if I'm divided within myself, then how can I be of help or service to anyone else if I don't have some kind of way of loving and accepting myself just as I am? And I hope that as you come along this journey with me, that you'll find ways or see ways of how important that self-love and acceptance is, and that it could even make the difference in helping and healing relationships that you might have with other people. Um, so thanks. And I don't have a good closer. So with love and harmony, thanks for listening.